have the honor to introduce probably one of the most fabulous women in my life, Dr. Tanesha Pittman. Tanesha is an educator, innovator, international inspirational speaker, spiritual life coach, and a budding author. She has over 15 years of eclectic experience in academic, government, and corporate sectors. Tanesha currently serves as an executive director for Benedictine University Moser College of Adult and Professional Studies. She has developed and led a myriad of distinctive programs, including the unprecedented and the best program ever in the entire world, Master of Science and Leadership degree program for women. Her expertise and passion for empowering women has now led her to pioneer and lead a Women's Institute for Global Leadership for the university and establish her own education and business enterprises. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Tanesha Pittman.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction and so kind words. And thank you so much for your applause. But what I'd like you to do very quickly is stand to your feet, quickly. And I want you to say to the people around you very quickly, you're about to fulfill your purpose, or reveal your purpose, or magnify your purpose on today. You may be seated. And yes, it's me. I'm not an imposter, right? When you look at the bio information, my hair is a little longer. So it is Tanesha. It is me today before you. But I want to share with you very quickly. We don't have a lot of time, but I do want to get as much information and impart as much wisdom as I can on today. When we look at each other and we share with each other and we encourage each other, just as we did a few moments ago, there's something very special about that. I don't know how you might feel, even earlier as we kind of looked in each other's eyes and glazed and kind of became really immersed in one another. So when you do that, not only in just a brief period of time, but over time, you can really be very impactful and it's quite empowering. So what I want to question you today is, what is living purposefully? What is purpose? And I really want you to ponder about that very quickly. And in order to do that, you must make certain that you take your time away from anything that is distracting you, whether it's an iPhone, an iPad, whatever it might be. Because if you have not arrived at purpose, it's imperative that you reach it today. So as you begin to ponder about what purpose really means, in my mind, it's really a determined state. You're really focused on getting to a certain point. You're really focused to reaching the outcomes that you desire. But beyond that, there has to be much more than intent. How many of you have heard intentionality, really being intentional about everything you do? By show of hands, right? We've all heard that. But is it just about intentionality? No, there's much more. And the more is really coming from a place, a sincere place, and that's the heart. So we can be very intentional, but if we're not coming from a place of heart, sincerity, then it's not authentic. So when you begin to think about what living purposefully means, you really need to be able to tap into your heart. So then you can really feel great about what it is that you're called to do. And as a follow-up question that I have for you, ask yourself, are you currently living and leading on purpose as a woman? And what is your cause, and how are you committed to that cause? I'll give you a few seconds. So as you continue to think about how you're committed and what your purpose really is and how you're leading, I want you to also understand that sometimes we're already operating with gifts and talents and in our purpose without intent. I'm an example of that. Being at Benedictine University, creating a Master's of Science in Leadership for women. That was not what I necessarily intended to do. I stumbled upon it, so to speak. It was a part of my destiny that I did not realize. I did not plan for it. It happened. But it happened because I was open. It happened because I had a heart to serve people. And it happened because I was focused. But there's more coming from the heart. So again, when you identify your gifts and you're willing to share these gifts with other people, just as was mentioned by Shabani, and even coming up from a place of humility, as was mentioned by Dr. Azra, we have to understand that it's not about us. It's about those that we are called to serve. So who are you called to serve? And are you serving them now? Do you have plans to serve them? Think about it. Now, we are operating in the gifts for the benefit of others. It is very, very gratifying. I believe most of you have had those kinds of experiences where you feel so fulfilled because you've been able to share what you have to offer. In doing so, there is a return. We don't have to focus on the return because there is a reciprocal effect regardless. And oftentimes, I am asked the question, so Tanesha, how did you discover your purpose? Well, my journey was very, very unique, as all of our journeys are. And most call my journey very quirky or too far-fetched. But allow me to share very briefly a little bit about my journey. The beginning of my journey, of course, was before the foundation of the world, but let's fast forward. Fast forwarding until maybe just about 4 years ago, I ended up in the backseat of my car. And in the backseat of my car, I was crying out, lying prostrate, asking God, what can I do to change my life? I'm not happy. There's a void. I had the family, house, car, job, everything that I desired, everything that I wrote on my dream board. How many of you have a dream board? Or you have some ideals of what you desire, and you've printed them out, you've written them out, or whatever, to help you manifest them. Well, I had that, but there was a void, because my lifestyle was not intentionally moving from the heart. It was not planned from the heart. So that void had to be filled with something that was purposeful, meaningful, but from the heart. So I was lying there, crying out. My children are looking for me in the house. Mom, where are you? I heard them, but I was in the backseat of the car, so I didn't respond. I needed a place of solace. How many of you have ever been in that place? Brokenness. You needed a place of solace, a place to get away, a place to really unearth who you are. I was there. My oldest daughter, I'm a mother of four daughters. Now, can you see kind of my destiny here? 4 daughters. Mother of 4, the oldest one runs out into the garage looking for me. My husband runs out. He jumps into the car because remember, I'm in the back seat lying down. Nobody can see where I am. So he jumps in the car, drives around the neighborhood looking for me, right? And my oldest daughter, finally, she looks in the back seat. She's like, Mom, what are you doing back here? I just said, go back in the house. I need a space and place for me right now. Fast forwarding, I began to cry out to God over that time. But in that very state that I was crying out, I said, show me what I'm to do. What am I called to do? But it wasn't just a mere cry. It was from the heart. That broken state, that broken place, where I knew there was much more to life than me writing checks or participating in some of the charitable activities that I had, because I did all those kinds of things. Been a part of charitable groups for years, spending time, going to nursing homes, doing all those things, wonderful work. But I wasn't fulfilled. I was not operating in purpose, was not living a life of purpose. So as I began to cry out to God, and I just said, show me what to do. A few days later, I'll say June 11th, 2008, my husband goes to St. Louis real quick on a very sporadic business trip. Goes to St. Louis. He comes back with a newspaper, USA Today, and he says, Tanesha, read this. I thought this article would be perfect for you to read. Okay, what is it? It says women's colleges get a boost in other countries. Well, go figure. Of course, I'm very interested. I'm developing a Master's of Science in Leadership for Women for Benedictine University to help women value who they are and what they have to contribute to society. So how perfect. Fast forward again. June 14th comes around. And at that time, I wasn't even thinking about watching TV, but my husband says, you should watch some of those Oprah shows you've recorded. How many of you have done that, DVR and Oprahs and all that stuff, things you like? Well, at the time, so I'm watching this Oprah show. It had aired May 26th. I'm watching it on June 14th. And it's about ambassadors, people who actually travel around the world to do missions work. So I'm watching, and these students are, and these, I should say ambassadors, not students, they're actually traveling to Kenya. And I just thought, like, this is interesting. How many of you have ever seen that particular program? I'm sure some of you have. So this travel was to actually have, I think it's about maybe 12 of them, to construct a school in 3 weeks in Kenya. I never even dreamt of going to Kenya. Well, I'm watching, and I became very intrigued, and they kind of canvassed the communities that they were in. They went to the countryside area, through the countryside area. It was beautiful. And then they ended up at a place where it wasn't so beautiful, and that's actually where some of the young girls were going to fetch water. Well, this tugged on my heart. My heart was very open at that time. When I actually saw the young girls going to the river's edge to fetch water with very dirty containers, the water looked like my skin. So it bothered me because, as you know, that's not how water is supposed to look. So that means they were drinking contaminated water. And I said to God at that very moment, I didn't even think about what I was saying. How many of you know you say things and you don't even understand what you're saying sometimes? But I just cried out and said, Lord, what can I do to help these people? I knew at that moment it was not about me writing a check. And it was not about me necessarily connecting to Oprah to say, okay, how can I help the O ambassadors? There was something more. I didn't quite know what it was at the time, but everything unfolded. So I fast forward, and then comes the next day, June 15th, and I go to my parents' church. I'm no longer a Baptist. I'm non-denominational. I am a Christian. But I go to my parents' church because my father wants me to come there for Father's Day. I get there. I'm sitting in the back of the church, and in the back of the church, I'm looking at the pulpit, and I notice that there is a very foreign-looking man. And guess what? This man was a pastor or a bishop from Kenya. So I sit there, and I'm in awe. And as I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, well, what is this about? Well, let me fast forward. I had an opportunity to connect with him. And you know what he said to me? You were sitting in the back of this church, and I saw a light that shone around you. And I said, I don't know what that means. Well, he said, God told me you're going to help the people of Kenya. This man knew nothing about what I saw the night before and knew nothing about what I confessed. So immediately, I knew that I was about to live a very different life because there was a connection here that was quite strong, but I didn't know what it was going to look like. But I knew that I had to begin to align myself with people and the actual things that I needed to do to prepare for this journey. That then took place in 2009. That was actually in June of 2008 that I met him. But then fast forwarding to August of 2009 is actually when I went to Kenya, unplanned, completely unplanned. But I explain that to you so that you understand that in being open to your call, being open to hear from God, if you don't have a spiritual connection, I admonish you today to get one. And those of you that know me, you know a lot about my history in terms of where I've been as an unwed mother, teenage mother, a very unorthodox path. But when you avail yourself, when you open yourself beyond who you are, you have to know who you are, of course, but when you tap into your purpose and you tap into your destiny, you begin to know who you are like never before, and no one can shake you, no one can tell you anything about who you are by labeling you because you know who you are. And I say that emphatically because when I was able to see the hand of God in my life, it just reassured me that I'm operating on the right path with great purpose to empower women to help them reach their destinies. And when I look at the meaning of names, very, very significant for each of you. So explore who you are, even by finding out the definition of your name. I found that my name means when the rain comes in Maasai, in Kenya. Very interesting. So I get there, it had been a drought, 4.5 months. And guess what happens? It pours rain. The people that I was with, the Kikuyu, they decided to rename me. They renamed me Yimbura. Well, Yimbura means what in Kikuyu? Rain. And so it's very significant in that even when you are able to obey, you have an open heart, you're listening to God, you obey, and you have a sensitivity, the things that happen. And it's not about, oh, I'm better than somebody else. This is open and available to anyone who avails themselves. So I'm not special. I'm special to myself, of course, but I'm no more special than you are. However, the difference is that I open myself, I avail myself to the Lord. And people say, and I know, Maria, we've had this conversation, I even went in the interview process for her publication or for her blog. I said, people might call me a Jesus freak, but I'm okay with that because I've seen his hand in my life. I've seen the supernatural in my life. So I'm a living witness, and not only did I see it, the people who were there saw it. 2 women with me. So live your life on purpose in a way that you can affect change, and not just to say, okay, I'm the supernatural being, no. but affect change that transforms lives, that leave an indelible impression upon their life, so that when you walk away from them, they know they've been changed. And when they watch you, they know that there's